Welcome to Atlanta's Commercial Real Estate Show, brought to you by Bull Realty, the show for property owners and business leaders. Host Michael Bull brings you market analysis, advice, and opportunities around Atlanta.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Yes, I am Michael Bull. And I think a lot of our listeners around Atlanta and people looking at Atlanta for their office space are curious about Atlanta office rents because we've had a real surge in the rents in Atlanta, probably the highest increase over the last few years that we've ever had in Atlanta. I think a lot of people are also curious about suburban because there's been a lot of people interested in urban, in town, midtown, downtown, Buckhead, but there's now a lot of people interested in the perimeter's been doing well in other suburban markets. So today we're going to talk about the rents market, some of the suburban buildings, and if you're looking at space around Atlanta or you own space around Atlanta, give you some tips to help you make better decisions. Please welcome my guest, Jeff Keppen. He is with CBRE, and he's Senior VP. He's joining us here in Studio One. Jeff, thanks for being with us.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Michael.
So, Jeff, you're working on some buildings here in the perimeter market, and I think these are not brand new buildings, right?
They're not.
So, how do you activate these buildings? And I think a lot of the tenants and businesses today, they want to be in a happening place. Right, a lot of things going on, but this is sleepy old perimeter. What are you doing to activate these buildings?
It's a great question, and I think what people miss in this whole conversation about relevant office space is that it's not just the fancy technology companies in Midtown and Buckhead that want cool space or cool amenities or cool buildings. It's really all industry sectors, and so one of my clients made a big bet almost 2 years ago now in the central perimeter that this sort of phenomenon of renovating and improving buildings and amenitizing buildings would also sprawl to the central perimeter, and so they bought 7,000 Central Park a couple of years ago. But what it comes down to is no matter if you're in town or you're in the suburbs, tenants want the same things. They want an environment that has some culture for their employees. They want an environment that has amenities, and they want it to be in a Class A environment these days. If you look at the statistics in Atlanta, the amount of leasing going on and the success we've had has been almost exclusively with the Class A assets. And when you combine those things, the amenities and the Class A environment and some culture, you're going to have more success than your competitors in any sub-market, and specifically in central perimeter. Because what we've found is not all of the ownership groups in central perimeter have taken that approach. Central perimeter has been very successful for a long time for some very good reasons. It has the best accessibility to the largest labor forces, but also has great accessibility to the millennial forces in Midtown that everybody's talking about. Right. If you're a millennial that lives in Midtown, you can leave your condo, jump on MARTA, and be in central perimeter in 8 or 10 minutes.
Right, and even if you're driving, you're going to get the other way of the traffic.
That's exactly right.
Right.
So, some of the things that we're doing at 7,000 Central Park that have been highly successful are, I talked about amenities. So, we took what was a very traditional, ordinary workplace environment at 7,000 Central Park and added things like our 5-star fitness center.
How old is that building?
Oh gosh, 80s.
Yeah, and it kind of looked
vintage.
It, right?
It did look it, and a lot of the original design intent of it had gone away over time with different capital projects of previous ownership groups. So a lot of the natural light was gone. The original intent of the entrance to the building was gone. The amenities had kind of fallen off. And so we've added what we call our 5-star worldwide program. Essentially, it's taking quality real estate and making it an environment full of service, operational efficiency, and really culture that kind of helps our customers attract talent. So we have an incredible fitness facility that has virtual classrooms available to our tenants. They can go down click on the TV and pick any kind of classroom, any kind of teacher they want, and exercise right there on site. We have a Zagster bike share program where our tenants have an app on their phone. They go down, they can check out a bike without talking to anybody, just using the app, take it out around Central Perimeter and be back. And so it's things like that are allowing our customers to attract talent.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And that building also has a lot of areas. It has a lot of common areas, a lot of amenity areas, right, that you had to work with.
It does. So, the biggest component of what we're doing now, we're actually under about a $2.5–3 million capital project that will be complete, if all goes well, next month this time. And it's a complete redo of the lobby to open it back up to bring in, what we would consider relevant finishes from the standpoint of brighter, lighter, lots of natural light, lots of communal seating. We're connecting the amenity space, which is on the terrace level, to the lobby level. Previously, you walked in the building, you didn't really know where you were, you had to figure out which elevator to get on to go find the amenities. So we're connecting it with this feature staircase. The neatest thing going on, though, in my opinion, is the green space and the outdoor space. We're sort of taking our office environment outdoors with this outdoor living area. Yeah. So we're on this incredible lake with a great fountain, but there was really no place to enjoy that outdoor green space. And when the outdoor living area is done, it'll allow our tenants to go outside and really work outside if they wanted to in a shaded environment, lots of soft seating, just more comfortable.
Great. That's awesome. And I think everybody's concerned with wellness and activity and exercise, and that's great. Let me ask you this, Jeff. One of the things I think that a lot of people have, some older buildings, they're not brand new, maybe they're not even Class A, and they're looking to give a building a new identity, right? Because you think about the tenant reps, us companies that are out there showing tenants, if we have the wrong impression or old impression of a building, we may not put it on the list, or we may not talk about it well. How are you giving these older properties new identities?
That's a great question, and I'll answer it a couple ways. First, I would say there's sort of three major components that you have to touch on these days. You have to have services that are different than the competition. Mm-hmm. If you take your client to 7000 Central Park and you know that if they're there, they're going to have extraordinary services, almost Ritz-Carlton-like services, it's going to make you look good,
right,
regardless of what their tenure is like.
And I need things to make me look good.
Me too. And you need tenant events. Culture is a big thing now. We talk about culture a lot, but tenants, the workplace environment's different. People don't want to go to work and just work 8 to 5 and be done. They want to have an experience while they're at work. So tenant events, an example of this we did this summer at 7000 Central Park, where we did movies in the park. So on certain days during the summer, we would put up a big screen, seating, food trucks, maybe a couple cocktails, and we would have people out to watch movies. Not just people in the building, but the community, to kind of bring that community feel. We played Sandlot. We played National Lampoon's Vacation, which we got a little negative feedback. PG-13 back in the day is not PG-13 now, but it was a really well-received event, and it's those kind of events that are changing things. The third thing I would say is you got to have sort of activated spaces. I've talked about the lobby, and I've talked about some of the amenity spaces and the outdoor space, but the other thing that we've done that has really attracted a lot of folks is we're taking that activation of spaces into our vacancies. So we've built out numerous loft textile suites that companies really can't find in the marketplace without having to go through a 6 to 8 month build out process and spend a lot of money designing them, where we're doing that on a speculative basis on the front end.
That's a great idea.
It's helping us sort of attract that momentum.
I like that. What are you seeing for demand from companies, from tenants who want that immediate space? Maybe they want some space that has very flexible leases. Are you seeing more of that?
Flexibility is the key word that you said. You're going to find corporate America, Fortune 500, they're going to have their program, and they're going to go through it regardless. But a majority of what we're seeing in the market today, especially in that small to mid-sized company, is they're growing fast. They don't necessarily know who they're going to be today, tomorrow, a month from now, a year from now, and they're generally not willing to go through that long process that you and I have been involved with a lot with, design and permitting and construction. So having that space that's ready for them to go, that's relevant in the market. It's not 90% offices on the glass, not a lot of natural light, drop ceiling systems. It's relevant space, but it's also very flexible because there aren't a lot of hard walls in place that can't be moved. So one day they can have 20 people, and relatively easily the next day they can have double that. So
what about lease terms?
Lease terms, generally, flexibility is the word as well. In my particular ownership, CBRE Global Investors realizes that. They can't make the returns they need to make if everybody does a 2 or 3 year lease. But what we realize is these cool creative companies who draw some of the bigger companies need that flexibility. So we're able to allow that flexibility for some of these companies that we're interested in pursuing.
Well, that's interesting. So you have a small amount of space. Obviously, you can't do the entire building with 2 or 3 year leases. You'll lose the value of the building, and you lose the value for financing and everything else. But so you have a certain amount of that. So I'm just wondering what kind of pushback you do get from the investors, from the owners of these buildings, when you come to them and, hey, this tenant wants a year-to-year lease.
Yeah, well, we do get pushback, and I'm frankly lucky to have ownership groups that are really on the cutting edge, and they understand that flexibility and that momentum from these groups leads to the more valuable leases. When they're looking at their underwriting. But it's a balance. It really is. It's a balance. That term is important to my ownership groups because that's how it's underwritten. That's how the next guy is going to value the asset. But any real estate of this size, this is a almost 500,000 square foot building. There's enough space in there, and I always use 10%. Less than 10% of that building, if you can get flexible on those terms, have some spaces with some flexibility and utilization as well as term, that 10% can help you generate the rest of the 90%.
Okay. What would be your closing tip for tenants today, Jeff, that are looking for space? Maybe they're going to need space in a year. What would you say to them as a couple tips?
The first thing I would say is make sure you understand who the owner of the building is and what their long-term goals are. Because to hire talent, these kids coming out of Georgia Tech and all of our university systems and moving to Atlanta from other cities, they're smart. They don't want to go to an environment that's a stale environment, and you don't want to put your company in a building where an ownership group's not committed. And so that'd be the first thing I would tell you. The second thing I would say is look for that flexibility. Find out what other kind of tenants are in the building, and find out what kind of flexibility you have in and around your space, because growth is a huge component to all the deals we're seeing today. And you don't want to get yourself in a situation in a building where you find the perfect space, but you're landlocked. Yeah,
that's a great tip. I hate it when I hear a tenant say, yeah, I want 8,432 square feet. And that's exactly, there's no flexibility, there's no growth. Jeff, great information. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
And thanks for joining us on Atlanta's Commercial Real Estate Show. What do you think? Leave us a comment, leave us a question. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.